Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the science fiction story A Call from the Stars, A Call to Arms. Chapter 2 From Point of View, Staff Sergeant Sin, Retired. I still remember where I was in the year early 2026, if I remember correctly. We started hearing all this ruckus about how we were seeing things near the sun, uh, ships possibly being reflected off of. It was strange. We'd been hearing about it for a long time, but so many were hoaxes back then that we just never paid any attention to them. Usually, we just disregarded them at that point. But I'll tell you what, when it ends up on the 6 o'clock news and they say, "Hey, no shit, guess what? Aliens are real. We've been talking to them." And all I could think was, oh no, how are the politicians going to screw this up? Oh, Lord. Well, we didn't realize things were even more messed up for our soon to be neighbors. We found out about the, the war that they were fighting even before they actually landed. And we weren't even shown a picture of them until they were almost on our planet to say hi. I'll tell you what, looking at them was just something else. Seeing them in person is truly amazing. I mean, you look up at them; they're taller than we are. The females are slightly taller than me. I'm 6 foot tall, and they were about averaged anywhere from 6'1" to 6'2". The males were almost 7 feet tall. Eh, eh, Two legs that came down to almost points on the feet, which was kind of weird. I mean, the part of their legs were really thick. They didn't have a carapace. They still had skin, but it was more reptilian. Uh, how do I put this? It's not as soft as ours. They don't really have any body hair that I saw. Their torso is obviously dimorphic. We could see a difference between male and female. It was pretty damn obvious, just like you see with ours. I found out later that's because they give birth to live children. That became common knowledge. If a species give birth to live kids, then women need to nurse those live kids. So, yeah, you can imagine where that went. And you can imagine the many, many, many comments that came out. God, that got so lame so quick. But I digress. Looking beyond the torso, the arms, what really gave it away. There was four of them. Four arms that were not nearly as thick as you would think for a species so large. Hell, their bicep area was about as big as my forearm. Yeah, I'm pretty built, but that's pretty small for something that big. At the end of their hands and feet, they had four digits. Now, they still had hands similar to ours, but the four digits were like you see in a lot of video games, two thumbs and two fingers. But they weren't nearly as big around as you would think. They were quite narrow and, well, for lack of a better term, dainty. The biggest shock, actually, was the head. You would think an alien species with multiple limbs would be an insectoid. They weren't. They looked very similar to ours. It was almost weird. I mean, they had two sets of eyes, which we found out that the only way to know if they're looking or paying attention to you is by all four eyes looking at you. If not, you'd see two eyes looking at you and the other two just moving around, taking in the rest of the environment. They all four did not move independent. I thought that at first, but nope. It's two sets. Two sets of the same type of eyes, too. That weirds us out. And I remember seeing when they finally stepped out and that sheen of blue green that they had. It was very strange. It seemed like the only hair they had was this almost, I don't want to say mohawk, but yeah, that's as close as I can get. Like a really wide mohawk, but it wasn't sticking up. It flowed down the back. Male and female both had long hair. It seemed to go down their back. It actually did, we found out later. that the fur actually goes to about the center of their first set of shoulder blades. I guess it's got something to do with them being an adult, but hey, it's their culture, it's their species. When they walked up to our president, and shook his hand, you could see the fear in his eyes. I swear I thought that guy was going to pee himself. It was funny. But they turned out to be not too bad. They were very polite. They had already learned our language. Of course, having a universal translator didn't hurt at all, which actually has become standard. We actually found out how it was made and made them smaller, easier for us to handle, which was a definite bonus. When we sat and talked to them, and everything was televised, everything was recorded, and of course, I watched it on the old, uh, what was that search engine called? Oh, God. Oh, they've been out of business for so long. I forget what the hell they were called. Anyway, it was the big one way back then. So you just watch all these video clips of what they were talking about. It was quite interesting. I still remember a few people trying to pronounce word in their language. We found out really quick we can't do that. Reason being, our tongue isn't forked. Their tongues stuck out an extra 6 to 8 inches out their mouth, and it was forked about halfway down, which gave them the ability to say things that we just could not mimic. It just was not possible. Although they could never understand how we can make throat noises. So take that as you wish. What was really surprising is when they told us about the war and that we were not directly in the path of the enemy, but we would be considered a threat the moment we were seen. This did not go over well with anybody at all because immediately everybody said they want us as cannon fodder. Sort of. They figured, hey, the more guns they can bring to the fight, the better. And hey, you know how us humans like our guns. As the old phrase goes, more DACA, more better. And that's something they didn't understand at first. And we were surprised to find out that their ships were, shall we say, limited in offensive capabilities. I guess I'll have to get into that later, but it was just surprising back then to see how little their ships could do. Nimble little things, but it won't matter if you can't dodge that many shots coming at you. Unfortunately for me, as soon as I found out about the war, everybody thought the same thing I did. They're going to call us back. And they did. I remember it was just a few days, and I get a phone call that says, "You've been reactivated." I said, "I'm retired. There's only one thing you can do, or two or three things you can do to get me back." The voice on the other side said, "What does that got to be?" I said, A, I'm getting promoted to the next rank, and two, you're giving me all the back pay I missed. It surprised the living shit out of me when he said, "Sold. So we'll see you on Monday?" Well, I guess the more things change, the more they stay the same.